All right. Let me see. Am I live? I tried this yesterday and it wasn't working. Let me just see. All right. So the 80% is totally necessary to do the 20%, writing the actual copy. Writing copy or copywriting is not writing copy as the number one thing that you're doing. It's the end result of asking the right questions, asking deeper questions, and asking as many sideways questions as you can to go down as many rabbit holes as you can to understand a conversation so that you could walk circles around it. You can see it from every vantage point. And I'm helping a Write With You client put together a supplement. I'm going to use that as an example so that you can understand exactly what I mean. I know some of y'all want me to do, like researching for stuff that I've never written for or thought about or done or offers I've never written for, whatever. Um, Sight unseen, and we can absolutely do that. But today I just want to give definition to how comprehensive the 80% is, and then end it with a little bit about back processing what you have, because you dive into all this, it's a full immersion experience, but then you have to completely disconnect from it to fully integrate everything that you've learned. A word that, if you know me, I absolutely hate the word learning. So these are my 80% secrets, or at least some of them. As Rowdy Roddy Piper said, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know. All right. So everybody is telling a story. You know my spiel. Everybody speaks in the language of story. But when you're sitting down to do your research and understand who these people are that you're trying to connect with, that you're hired to help, after all, the more people you help, the more money you make. Uh, you need to know what story I'm telling specifically, the the specific circumstances I'm going through as a result of this problem. How many times I think about this problem every day, all the things that I've tried to get rid of this problem. Maybe some of them are just like what you're trying to sell me right now. You need to have a comprehensive understanding about the people you are trying to affect, to connect with, and you'll understand how different what I teach is than the typical problem, agitate, solve. But more important, more importantly than anything else, you're sitting down here to give a fuck. If And this is something that I think a lot of copywriters and business owners undervalue, and in fact a lot of business owners undervalue. I've had to be the heart and soul of projects because sometimes biz owners are just about the numbers, about the money. You got to bring the heart and soul to things. And so when you sit down to do this research, realize that you can do things, write things that have never been done, or at least done the way that you're going to do them, and affect people in totally unique, special, brand new ways. That's amazing. You should appreciate the living fuck out of that. Because when you're sitting down, it's like y- you're a pitcher on the mound. You're trying to figure out each question as they arise, just like a pitcher has to figure out each batter as they come into the box. That's what she said. No. So you got to give a damn. I was told no, that's not funny. You got to give a damn. You have to give a damn when you sit down to do your 80%. Otherwise, it's going to feel like pulling teeth. So, what is the story people are telling? Now, everybody knows who knows my work, Mechanism and New Cause, are kind of the cornerstone of heuristic copywriting and the whole untemplate philosophy. Every human being, they need to know how something works. It helps me reconcile making a decision or feeling good about investing my money when I'm like, yeah, I get it. I mean, that totally makes sense. Why wouldn't I get this if it works? And that's your guarantee. That's your social proof. The wink and the nod of if it works, it should work. But the mechanism of helping me imagine how it works is so impactful. A quick story: when I had cancer as a little boy, uh, my mom did my live blood cell, and I'm watching the screen, and on the screen is a mutated cell, cancer cell, and there's a neutrophil cell, a white immune cell, blobbing over to it, and then all of a sudden another one, and then another one, and another one. And I'm watching on the monitor. She's looking with her eyes in the microscope, and I'm looking on the monitor as she's looking in the microscope. And the white cells are, just all glomming over, and then all of a sudden they're just like all on top of it. And I'm watching the mechanism of my body healing itself, and I'm 9 years old, and I'm just like overwhelmed because I felt so alone in the whole process of disease and feeling out of control of my life. Watching those white cells just devour that mutated cell, it brought tears to my eyes. And then something even just amazing happened. My cells, all the red cells, which are all glommed together, it's called related, they look like slinkies. They just started rushing, and they separated, and they were becoming more vibrant and luminescent because of all the emotion that I was feeling. It created a rush of oxygenation, and this is blood outside my body. My blood responded as if it was inside my body. It's a drop of blood underneath a microscope. And when I saw that my body, first of all, is an energy and can respond to me outside of my body, that I saw how it could heal. And in that moment is what allowed me to be here today. And it was understanding and seeing that so clearly that made me confident in my decision to move forward as a 9-year-old. So when people understand that they can vividly see how something works, it creates an emotional attachment to the solution and to the results that solution can create. New cause, why everything else failed. Just like I need to know why this works, I've probably spent a lot of money, or at least put my attention in a lot of places where this can work, this could work, this could work, this could work. I tried this, tried that too, and it kind of seemed like maybe something, but then no, didn't do anything. It was just, maybe it was just placebo. I don't know. Point being, people have tried things and they didn't work. So tell me why. And I'm not talking Backstreet Boys. Tell me why it didn't work. They didn't work. And it's funny that I bring that because there's a deeper problem. If you can associate a deeper problem to my symptoms and make my symptoms not, I get taken, I take care of this, all my symptoms gone. In the supplement I'm going to talk about, I'm going to show you exactly what that means when you take the problem I think I have, but then I really have this. And if I do this, then I can finally take care of this. So everything is a symptom of what I'm really dealing with. So if I have high blood sugar, maybe it's because I have leaky gut, hyperpermeability. And you can tell people it's a real thing. It's not a myth. It's literally holes poked in your small intestine, the meshy part of your small intestine that leaches food into the bloodstream. Candida, bacteria, they build up on it and they eat holes in it. And then all of your food, digested and not, They get into the bloodstream, and all of a sudden, you've got all this sugar in your bloodstream that spikes. Insulin tries to pack it all away. It becomes fat. You never get to burn it. You can like break things down to a core reason why I have certain symptoms. And that makes your conversation you're having with your audience, with prospects, different than the conversation your competition is having. They're all dealing with X, you're dealing with Y in order to deal with X. So what's the deeper core? What's the deeper problem that I'm dealing with that you can help me solve? So going back just 1 second to this slide. So a lot of your 80% when you're sitting down, figuring out what is the mechanism of this. You'll see when I take you through just a little bit of my process for this up, you're I'm focusing on mechanism. Okay, how does that work? Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, right. Okay, how does that work? Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, what about this? Oh, they're connected like that. And then I start putting all the pieces together. And then I build that ability to start walking around this problem like it's something right here in the middle of my room. And I get to see it from all these different perspectives, all these different angles, and ways that I can approach the conversation, position the conversation, get most people to raise their hands. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to persuade. I can get people to persuade themselves if they see themselves in a problem to relate their experience with what they're seeing. It could be your story, it could be through mechanism, it could be new cause, but I'm trying to get people to self-identify. That is the number one way that you will get people to buy your thingamajig. And I'll get more into that into this slide here. So the old school way of approaching is copy is persuasion, problem, agitate, solve. It's a formula. It's a template. Older than dirt. It's much older than me. I wasn't even around when very, very smart and rich people influenced and changed advertising forever by understanding problem, agitate, solve. And you have to just a few things remember. Market sophistication is so different than it was in the 50s in the Mad Men era. So all the old stuff, it's still there are all the old tropes and bullshit that direct response is known for. A lot of it really does still work and can work in its most aggressive direct response, direct responsive form. But people have become aware of what we do, and that changed a lot in marketing. It changed market sophistication, market awareness. If you're in supplements or in finance and you're dealing with selling to a lot of old people, 50 plusers who have tried everything under the sun, then you have a lot of new cause because they've seen a lot of this advertising. And so if you're aware of like in your 80%, you're aware that, oh wow, this market has been really hit hard with, this type of advertising, then I can approach it with a fresh coat of paint, with a new facade that feels more authentic and hopefully is more authentic. So today it's about connection, dopamine, and identifying. So the connecting is everybody's telling a story, and you're giving me ways to see myself, to see my story in what you've got on the screen, right? So if I can see myself in it, I'm raising my hand. I'm connecting. I'm feeling connected. There's resonance. If if we look at it like a radio frequency, a radio dial, each of us is a radio dial. Your advertising is a frequency, and I am a frequency. If our frequencies mesh, we connect. We jive. We got chemistry. We got flow. You got my attention, right? And what happens when you're telling me about a way I can finally get what I want, even if XYZ didn't work? And here's how I can finally have it. You get dopamine. Now I have an idea of what the value proposition is. I know what the carrot is at the end of the stick. I know what the reward is, and I have the desire to get it. That's where the dopamine is. That's why everything has to trigger dopamine. Now, the self identification aspect is, if you give me a symbol, I can see myself in. If you can tell a story, I can see myself in. In other words, trigger my mirror neurons, my empathy, which is literally my ability to see myself in something or somebody else or another person's experience. If you can put something in front of me that gets me to raise my hand and identify, that's my self identification with the problem you can help me solve. That you've triggered a story I'm telling so that you get my attention. So that's why all the 80% starts with mechanism and story. And when you have to know the words I use, the circumstances I've gone through, the things that I've tried and why they didn't work, new cause, and what I really want, so that you can future pace me and suspend my disbelief or help me suspend my own disbelief with mechanism. So when I see myself in it, I become immersed. That's the immersion process, just like Hollywood movies. When we see ourselves in a character, now we're in the movie. Now we're taking it personally. It's like that's why we react, emote, feel real emotion like it's happening to ourselves because we're imagining as if. That's the same effect that you want to achieve in your advertising. That's the end all be all of what makes this shit work, of what makes me buy something. And really, on this, still staying on number one here, you're allowing me to connect with, to see myself in, so I persuade myself with the dopamine you're triggering. By triggering the dopamine, I convince myself to keep watching, to keep listening, to keep reading, to keep clicking, to whip out that credit card. So, what specific part of my story are you trying to help me with? That's another big part of your 80%. What are the specific circumstances I'm going through? And I'll show you a few things, like what you can do with Amazon and Amazon reviews, to kind of get an idea of the heuristics, people's stories about the problem you can help them solve, what they're talking about, their dog whistle language, what words they use, what terms they use. You want to be able to integrate and back process all of that as part of your 80%, because, spoiler alert, you're not a great writer. Even if you're one of the most amazing writers on the planet, you're not a great writer unless you're really getting me to feel something, to see myself in it. And when you immerse yourself in it, you feel the essence of it. And what you're really doing when you're writing, when you finally sit down at your keyboard to do that 20%, it's really channeling. So that's why this immersion, the 80%, that's why I started with, you got to care. One thing before I keep going, you don't need to spend hours and hours and hours and hours. You don't even need to spend an hour oftentimes doing this stuff. I can get so much of my 80% done, oftentimes 5, 10, 15 minutes, and be off to the races. You don't know how much you need. You don't know how much you're going to need to know in order to get this deliverable finish, this VSL, this TSL, this Shopify store, e-commerce store, hybrid, whatever funnel. You don't know how much of this 80% you're really gonna need to do. So you keep doing more and more and more as you go. For me, I've done a lot of 80% over the last 18 years in all of these things. So I can very often get my 80% done for a full form supplement VSL in less than an hour, sometimes in less than 20 minutes. And I'm not in a race with myself, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, I get things done fast and easy, and look at me. But still, kind of, yes, because when you realize that the 80% is where all of your attention needs to be before you write word one, takes a lot of pressure off. You're able to, realize that this is work. This is the work, and relax into it. Figure out what allows you to relax into asking questions and into getting your curiosity. Maybe you need to work out, maybe you need to get extra sleep, maybe you need to wake up early. Find what gets you in the mood to ask questions, to be curious, to go down all these rabbit holes. Smoke weed, I don't know, whatever it is, go to, like me, go to somewhere extremely loud and chaotic, because for me it comes white noise, you know, and then I'm able to tunnel vision right on my screen because of all that chaos. Whereas if I'm in a place that's quiet, oh, I need to clean. Oh man, it's been a while since shoot, I haven't cleaned the car in a while. Damn. You just start finding ways to distract yourself, or you get disconnected from the essence of what you're doing. So remember, at the end of the day, let me go back here. Uh, Direct response is one thing, one problem, one solution. And the mechanism is what bridges it to help suspend my disbelief so I get from the problem to your solution. It is that simple. But when you understand the story, if it's finance, understanding the indicators that you're looking for, how those indicators are found, why other experts miss these indicators, why they're so hidden. But when you learn this one thing, you have the eyes to see it and to figure out all the different dog whistle language that will get a person fully immersed in that conversation. Or if it's supplements, what is it that I'm experiencing right now that is at top of mind? If it's a problem that is consuming my life, there's a lot of emotion. You don't have to say a lot to trigger it. If it's something that, can be bothersome, and maybe it's a problem I've had for a long time, like, I don't know, tinnitus. Well, I'm not necessarily thinking about it right now, but the moment oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have an ad playing that says, are you tired of hearing this all day, all night? Then it's like, okay, yeah, you got me immediately thinking about tinnitus. So, well, what if I told you, blah, blah, blah? You get me into the conversation. What if questions are great. But remember, at the end of the day, it is one thing, one thing. This slide just pretty much speaks for itself. I'm gonna move on from that. Chat GPT. So a lot of people don't know much about a subject. Let's say high glucose, high blood sugar. That's a big market, and it's the around the supplement I'm going to show you. Let's say you don't know very much about it. Well, you can go into the GPT machine, and I'll give you some examples. But you can go into the GPT machine and, you know figure out the basics of a conversation, so you know what questions you need to start really be asking. You can't ever sound like somebody who just learned something when you write copy. So you need to get deep into the conversation. You need to understand the deeper core and how the deeper core manifests. How this part of my body, how my gut broke down, how the liver became obese and made me obese. These are questions you need to know to ask in order to get my attention, to get me to raise my hand with your copy. So the GPT machine can help you get a baseline of awareness of questions that you need to ask if you're unaware of a subject, or you need to quickly understand better questions to ask so that you can get to the deeper core, so that you can start figuring out how you're going to position your goddamn freaking funnel. So before we get into the demonstrative stuff, you can just look at this slide. I'll get into it. Back processing. I didn't fix this slide. Sorry. I'll get to this at the end after I show some demonstrative stuff here. So first of all, right here, looking at my screen over here as well. So right here is some copy we actually wrote today for the opening of a VSL, for the landing page or for ads. Just getting some ideas of how to start opening, how to open this thing up. Now, in my research, we you get to talk about visceral fat, adipose fat, which is a second organ, or it's a new organ. It's the fat in between our regular fat and then our organs. And it is so pervasive, it actually changes, it secretes chemicals and hormones that actually changes our entire endocrine system. Visceral fat makes new visceral fat. So, in other words, the fatter you are, the fatter you're going to get, is the way it really plays out. Um, the hero ingredient that we figured out. Now, when we started with the right with you, it was gardenia as the hero ingredient, and it was too much of a commodity. It's an amazing ingredient, but we need to figure out. And by the way, part of the value proposition here is better than Ozempic or an alternative to Ozempic. Ozempic triggers the hormone GLP-1 in the gut, which is to help regulate insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, which is also how you take the fuel away from uh, adipose fat, from uh, stomach fat, the really hard to get rid of dangerous visceral fat. So we're able to come to the conversation with acromantia, which in all of the studies, both mice, rat, human, people who are obese do not have this rare bacteria in their gut. People who are skinny have typically a lot of this bacteria in their gut. And that's why I dubbed it the skinny bacteria. So now we got this skinny bacteria, and the value proposition is put this in your gut, and you can have the gut of a skinny person. Now, you can be skinny and be fat, just if you are able to see this or not. No, hold on. Share this tab instead. Cool. That you can be thin outside, fat inside, and that is also what visceral fat's known for. So if you, it's like if you see that dad bod, that skinny fat kind of looks like an adult man with a toddler body. That's the skinny fat body, and that's visceral fat. That's the stomach fat that's specifically there to protect the organs, not Oregon, to protect the organs. So it becomes so thick. That's why it's known as an organ now, and it produces its own hormones that completely interrupts and changes the endocrine system. But you can be skinny and still fat, still be fat. So that's why skinny people can have high blood sugar and have all of the problems that obese people have, even if they're not obese, which is pretty cool science. Go back over here. So we have the acromantia. So we have visceral fat. What if this dangerous stomach fat is the reason you keep gaining weight, never lose weight, have insulin resistance, high A1C, and always feel hungry no matter how much you overeat? Right? So we're talking about ways to enter the conversation, whereas acromantia, this newly discovered bacteria, is clinically proven to help reverse obesity without eating less or changing your diet. In fact, overweight people don't have this bacteria. Skinny people have loads of this bacteria. That's why it's been dubbed the skinny bacteria by yours truly. So we have all these different ways of getting into the conversation with the bacteria. Then we have the insulin resistance way of getting into the conversation, because the insulin resistance is a huge part of why we're not burning the energy we put into our body, why it's being stored away, and then why it can't be stored away and creates those huge spikes in blood sugar and those really high A1C numbers. If you have a high A1C, you likely have tons of visceral fat. Uh, this one actually is not the one written by me. This is written by my client. Then we get into the liver. What if your liver is the reason you can't lose weight? Wouldn't you want to know how this one newly discovered bacteria helps your liver burn fat? And then we can say, since I didn't finish this off, so you can lose weight. So each is we're talking about like the hierarchy of messaging. There's all this different messaging, all these different ways that I can get people to raise their hands with just the science aspect. We're not getting in the storytelling here. We're not talking authority. We're not talking, the clickbank. Honey, I'm good. The overly dramatic cinematic bullshit that's just trying to scare the shit out of people. Um, you ever wonder why not many, if any, clickbank campaigns, top campaigns, have ever become massive exits that become huge pop culture changing brands because they're built on lies? Elf should do something about that. So we have the liver, and then we have Ozempic. So what's the value proposition from Ozempic? See this bacteria? Big pharmas, and that's the Akkermansia. So stacking the elements. Big pharma's afraid of this tiny little bacteria because it can't do what Ozempic does without the cost or side effects. Experts are calling it the skinny bacteria. So leaky gut. So how did I get to all of this? Oh, by the way, you know how it's not your fault? I did use it. Everybody knows how I hate it's not your fault. I did use it's not your fault. It's this guy's fault. I had fun doing that. Okay, I'm gonna move over here. Well, actually, I'm gonna go over here first for Chat GPT. So here we started. What is acromancia? Now, you have to be able to know how to find these things. So, because we're developing a supplement here. So, the 80% to actually source out these ingredients. Oh, it's not showing the tab. There we go. To actually source out the ingredients, that's a totally different and much deeper 80%. And the reason why it's so important to know how to formulate, not just for efficacy, but you are quite literally choosing your positioning. So by using Akkermansia, it's a newly discovered bacteria. You aren't going to Whole Foods. You're not buying it over the counter. It's in other supplements that you can buy on like Amazon, but typically they're expensive. And because it's so new, very few companies are doing it right or doing it well. Now, it has an abundance. I'm just going to tell you this before we just kind of go through this. It has an abundance of science and of scientific proof, clinical studies, both rat and human, mice, human. So the what we look for from a citations and compliance perspective and the ability to make claims, it's incredible here. So it's in the mucosal lining of the gut, um, mucosal barrier, which helps prevent leakage or harmful substances into the bloodstream, aka leaky gut, which is also known as hyperpermeability. I'm making some leaps here, but you can see there's questions that you need to ask to get to the point of being aware of that. Anti-inflammatory effects. Um, Candida, bad bacteria, they secrete endotoxins like LPS. And if we have leaky small intestine, leaky gut, it gets into the bloodstream, creates chronic inflammatory condition. So it's like a raging wildfire that no matter how much water you pour on it, never goes away. You can associate that to bloat. You can associate it to joint pain, muscle pain, brain fog. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with it. Obviously, our immune system is symbiotic with the gut, the epithelial inside wall of the gut. So we can talk about autoimmune aspects or just simply ramping up our immune system because we're able to fortify the castle, so to speak. By the way, the gut is a seamless tube from your mouth to your butt. Nothing's supposed to get into our blood because of it. When we have leaky gut, things get into our blood, out airborne pathogens, environmental toxins, everything that was never supposed to get into our blood gets into our blood, which causes a whole host of problems. So, how does acromantia help with leaky gut? Maintenance of the mucus barrier. A glycoprotein natural source. By doing so, it may promote the growth and maintenance of the mucus layer, thickening it. A healthy mucus layer is extra protective barrier in the gut, preventing harmful substances passing to the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. Okay, that's amazing. Tightening the intestinal junctions, the integrity of the tight junctions in the gut lining. So the epithelial wall to make that mesh system. There we go. Mesh system tighter, which again is incredible, helping to reduce leaky gut. If you need to know what leaky gut is more, then you type that in. You ask all the questions you need to ask about leaky gut to get to its scientific name, hyperpermeability. Here we have your first chronic inflammation in the gut contribute to intestinal permeability by reducing inflammation. Acromantia may indirectly help in maintaining the integrity of the gut barrier. Basically, the same thing he's saying there, just from a different perspective. Balancing the gut microbiota. So, our microbiome, we should have 85% good bacteria, 50% bad bacteria and candida, and it needs to be very eco diverse. We have a lot of different forms of bacteria, and different forms of bacteria do different things. This one is specific for blood sugar and for weight, because insulin sensitivity, because of specifically what you're seeing right here with what it does in the mucosal layer, and actually helps thicken the mucosal layer. So does Akkermansia help thicken the mucosal layer of the gut? Yes, Akkermansia is believed to have a role in promoting maintenance of mucosal layer in the gut. Here's how blah blah blah. So you can see I'm starting to have a better understanding now. I know in my research that I need to talk about Ozempic. So what? And I know Ozempic triggers GLP-1. Does Akkermansia produce GLP-1 in the gut? Yes, Akkermansia has been associated with the production of GLP-1, and the product, the supplement, is called GLP-1 plus. In regulating blood sugar levels and including insulin release, insulin sensitivity, appetite regulation, slowing gastric emptying, which helps people feel fuller longer. Another way of suppressing appetite without feeling like you're being deprived of anything, which is a big problem with people who are trying to lose weight, because bad bacteria and candida in their gut are like, feed me, sugar, sugar, sugar. And it's like, I'm still hungry. And then the leaky gut is like sleeping all that undigested food that can't be used for energy, and it gets stored away as fat, becomes more visceral fat. Visceral fat is manipulating the hormones to create more visceral fat. It becomes this endless cycle, and people just get bigger, 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 or their blood sugar problems get worse, 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 or both. So now I have an understanding of what that. Okay, but what? Oopsies. I have an idea of what one does, why Ozempic is so amazing at what it does. Here, you would also, I've already done this, you would need to understand what the side effects of Ozempic are. Um, why are people ending up in the emergency room? Emergency room because of Ozempic side effects. This is actually in a study, so let's see if it's being truthful here. So here it's giving you some of the problems people are having, but I found numerous studies and stories of how people literally the ER is filling up with people who are having side effects of Ozempic, and because Ozempic the effects of Ozempic only work while you're taking it. It's not actually fixing anything. The moment you stop taking it, and it costs $1,000 a month. A lot of people's insurance don't cover it, or their copays are still really high, so it's expensive. It has a lot of side effects, and the moment you stop using it, the positive effects go away. You go straight back or worse than where you were before. So think about a lot of things to think about there. Jumping ahead, what is visceral fat? You want to know what visceral fat is. This is a study that I had opened up earlier that there's all kinds of questions though that you need to ask, like, and get studies. Anytime you're making any claims around a supplement, you have to be able to cite specific studies, and you also should record when you're doing your research, when you're doing an 80%, when compliance is at play, because you will have all of the breadcrumbs that got to where you were able to make these specific claims. So if the company should ever get in trouble, they have that Zoom recording and they're able to cite everything. So if the FTC comes at them, FDA comes at them, both, you're able to show them that. That is a big deal for your protection, for everybody's protection. Do not forget that. And it's so simple. Just have to pay for a little bit more cloud storage in your Zoom, depending on how many projects you're doing. So, how does how does acromantia help bring down A1C? So we're talking glucose, right? And I have found all kinds of. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I wasn't sharing this. And as you can see, I found all kinds of studies. If I open up any of these, I'm gonna find lots of different things to cite. You want to make sure and go through these studies. You want to read them. And let me give you earlier today. Was it this one? No. Hold on one second, y'all. In one of the studies that I went through earlier today, I had found, oh, goodness gracious. Of course, I can't find it when I'm put on the spot. An incredible line about not having to change your diet to lose weight with acromantia. Just the presence of acromantia and the growing presence of acromantia in the gut uh, does incredible things for being able to lose weight without changing diet, without eating less food. And when you're in marketing, when you're in advertising, when you have the ability to make that very real, authentic claim, and you're able to cite it to a study that not only talks about that, but everything around that, um, is incredible. The non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, that's another thing that a lot of people who have a 27 to 30 plus BMI are dealing with non-alcoholic fatty liver. Their livers have uh, absorbed too much fat. Their livers have essentially become obese and can't metabolize it anymore. So the entire glucose metabolism breaks down, and then that harms insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance even more. So you can see just from this one ingredient, and I'm not even doing this justice in terms of the uh the tip of the iceberg and all the research that needs to be done to truly understand what we're dealing with. Let me see if I can find a document that has that already done. Bear with me for 1 second. Because I have already procured an absurd amount of studies for this baby. We're talking over 50 just for acromantia. It's going to take me too long to find, unfortunately. But you start going deeper down the rabbit hole of, okay, how does acromantia help create better insulin sensitivity, for instance? You need to figure out, because it's a huge part of the equation. Increasing the insulin sensitivity is what deals with the um, stomach fat, this dangerous skinny fat and fat that is making people fatter and is influencing so much about what's going on in. And we can't talk about this when we're doing supplement copywriting, but in reality, the type 2 diabetes, this is dealing with the very core of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is autoimmune, it's gut based. Type 1 is not. So you're able to deal with the very deepest core of type 2 diabetes. And while you can't talk about type 2 diabetes compliantly, because then it would be a cure claim, you get to talk about insulin sensitivity and resistance. You get to talk about glucose management, um, uh, uh, all the things, liver, the liver, and it's metabolizing of fat and sugar. I mean, it's just a huge part of it, and you can use the GPT machine for that. Like, let's go back to this tab. What role? What role does the liver play in blood sugar? So now you're understanding, wow, the role of the liver is incredible. How does Akkermansia help the liver metabolize glucose? The GLP production helps increase insulin sensitivity, glucose uptake, which can benefit the liver metabolism indirectly. Short chain fatty acid production. Blah blah blah. This can also help influence liver function and help improve the utilization of glucose. Some amazing stuff. How does Akkermansia help the liver metabolize fat? and it's giving us the same basic. So you want to make sure and approach everything from as many different perspectives as possible, even if it seems same-ish, it's different enough. But okay, so now we're understanding. Wow, the liver plays a really valuable role in this, and we're able to address that as well, which allows us. And you can now see how I was able to get to this stuff, right? So the 80%, and by the way, in writing this, it's a write with you session. It's being done in an hour, an hour and a half when we're on screen writing together. So I hope that gives you somewhat of an idea about what it takes to do the 80%. And this is just talking about supplements, obviously. I know a lot of you are writing in different spaces. We could do it in relationships, dating. We can do it in finance. We can do it in MMO. We can do it in coaching. There is nothing that the 80% doesn't, that each 80% can be different. So, but at the end of the day, it's always what are the stories people are telling? What's the dog whistle language? One of the things I didn't here show you real fast. Amazon. Amazon. All right. So here is Amazon. Here's some Acromantia stuff. I put in Acromantia supplement for weight loss. So let's just see what people are saying. We got 137. This has a lot of okay, 572, 25, 344. Let's click this one. By the way, on Amazon, you have to be extremely compliant. That's why you typically see Amazon copy being way more generic, neutered. Here's their A plus content. Aims to strengthens and protects intestinal walls, improves overall health. Well, they put a lot of time into their copy, didn't they? Wow. All right, let's see what people are saying. Effective. They made my bowel habits worse, but these probiotics are perfect. My bowel habits have improved. Bowel habits. Well, whatever. Dog whistle language. What is she talking about? They're easy to swallow. No unpleasant taste or odor. Okay. Additional intestinal reinforcement. Well, nothing much there. No bloating. Stomach discomfort, and this probiotic makes us feel great. We strong, nothing much. These look like paid ones to me. It's interesting that we're seeing these capsules are small, it's tasteless and easy to swallow. It really does seem like they had a bunch of people they know. All right, I'm not impressed with this one. Let's go back to the search. This doesn't have the acromancy in it, but it's specifically for blood glue. Oh, it does have acromancy. Let's go down here to the comments. Suffered the effects of type 2 diabetes and glucose intolerance. The whole high fructose corn syrup thing with most sweetened foods has contributed. Noted. I studied a number of supplements after two A1C tests. a client once asked me, "What's A1C? I've never heard of that. Are people going to know what that means?" So, when I said care about what you're writing about, if a client doesn't know that is in the high blood sugar space that an A1C test is what it is, I mean, it's just like, come on, man. If you don't, and you're in, well, this is why we do the 80%. I have pain, neuropathy. We haven't talked about neuropathy in the copy that I mentioned. I was prescribed metformin. That was like Ozempic before Ozempic. So I could talk about how big pharma has wheeled out drug after drug, and Ozempic is just the latest in a long line after metformin, or other drugs that try to achieve the same thing, but then have so many side effects that they get taken off the market, or so many people are suing them that they take it off. You're able to hear the specific numbers. My A1C 2 years ago, after taking this up much my diet, my A1C was 5.8, back into the normal range, albeit just barely. Uh, Getting off my diet and eating again too many sweets in the next year, went back up to 6.2. That's getting high. Uh, so there's a lot of really cool dog whistle language in that one. So you can see, you can start getting ideas and understanding the tone of the conversation that you have to include in your 80%. Because if you hit the right tone, you can trigger the right tone, get me to raise my hand. So that is a part one of doing 80%. I am tired. I would love to hear y'all's questions. This group is growing. The questions help to grow the group more and get more people engaging. So I appreciate it. And I enjoy doing these free things, but I also love it when people obviously get value and want more specificity, more understanding about specific things, because I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg on so much of this stuff. So questions, leave your comments, and I appreciate it, y'all.